The applause in the auditorium was deafening. It sounded like heavy rain hitting a tin roof, a sound that usually comforted me. But today, in this massive hall filled with velvet seats and chandeliers, the noise made me feel dizzy. I sat in the third row. I had fought tooth and nail for the seat. I wanted to be close enough to see the sweat on his forehead, close enough to catch his eye when he looked for me. My son, Liam. My beautiful, brilliant boy. He stood at the podium, adjusting the microphone. He looked so tall in his graduation gown. The dark fabric draped over his shoulders, heavy with the weight of achievement. Dr. Liam Turner. The words tasted like honey in my mind. I smoothed the fabric of my dress. It was an old dress, one I had bought 5 years ago at a thrift store, but I had steamed it carefully this morning. I didn't care that my shoes were tight or that my hands were rough and red from years of scrubbing floors. None of that mattered. Because we made it. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of expensive perfume from the woman sitting next to me. She was holding a bouquet of roses. I didn't have flowers. I had used the last of my savings to pay for the gas to get here and the small celebratory dinner I had planned for tonight. Just the two of us. Like always. Liam cleared his throat. The room went silent. Thank you, Dean, perfectly, he said, his voice deep and steady. And thank you to the faculty, my peers, and the friends I've made along the way. I leaned forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was the moment. We had talked about this. Not explicitly, but in the quiet moments over the last 10 years. When I was soaking my swollen feet after a 16-hour shift. When he was crying over organic chemistry at 3 a.m. We knew who did this. We knew who built this mountain he was standing on. Medical school is not a journey you take alone, Liam continued. He smiled, a charming, easy smile that I loved more than anything. It requires support. It requires vision. My eyes welled up. I prepared myself to wave, just a small wave, when he said my name. I wanted to be dignified. I want to dedicate this degree to the person who showed me that success is about seizing opportunities, Liam said. He looked out into the crowd. But he didn't look at the third row. He looked past me. Toward the VIP section near the front left. To my father, Mark, Liam said, his voice swelling with pride. Dad, thank you for believing in me. Thank you for showing me what it means to be a man of the world. This is for you. The air left the room. For a second, I thought I had misheard him. I thought maybe my hearing aid was malfunctioning, or maybe the stress had finally made me snap. But then I saw him. Mark. My ex-husband stood up 2 rows ahead of me, slightly to the left. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. He waved at Liam, a big, confident wave. He looked tan. Healthy. Rich. He didn't look like a man who had abandoned us 22 years ago. He didn't look like the man who left me with a newborn, a pile of unpaid bills, and an empty refrigerator. Liam was clapping. The audience was clapping. And I sat there, frozen. I felt something crack inside my chest. It wasn't a loud break. It was quiet. Like a glass vase slipping from wet fingers and shattering on a carpet. Liam didn't mention me. He didn't mention the double shifts at the diner. He didn't mention the years I spent cleaning office buildings at night, smelling like bleach and ammonia so he could smell like sterile hospitals. He didn't mention the time I sold my grandmother's wedding ring to pay for his MCAT prep course. To my father, he had said. I looked at my hands. These hands had scrubbed toilets, flipped burgers, and sewn hems until my fingers bled. These hands had held him when he had a fever of 104. These hands had signed thousands of checks for tuition, books, lab fees, and rent. Mark's hands had only ever signed divorce papers. The rest of the speech was a blur. I couldn't hear anything else. There was a high-pitched ringing in my ears. I saw Liam's mouth moving, I saw him laughing, but I was underwater. When he finished, the room erupted again. Mark was the first one on his feet, cheering loudly. "That's my boy," he shouted. "Your boy?" The thought screamed in my head. "Your boy? Where were you when your boy needed braces? Where were you when your boy needed a ride to soccer practice because I was working my second job? Where were you when we ate instant noodles for Thanksgiving because we couldn't afford a turkey?" I felt sick. A cold, heavy nausea settled in my stomach. I wanted to stand up and scream. I wanted to run to the podium and shake Liam. I wanted to ask him, why? But I didn't. I sat there, small and silent in my old thrift store dress. I clapped my rough, red hands together weakly. Because that's what I had always done. I swallowed my pain to let him shine. I made myself invisible so he could be seen. But as I watched Mark walk toward the stage to hug our son, I realized something terrifying. I had done my job too well. I had made myself so invisible that even my own son couldn't see me anymore. To understand why this moment shattered my entire world, you have to understand where we started. You have to understand the cost of that diploma. My life ended the day Mark left. And a new one began. A harder one. I was 22. Liam was 6 months old. Mark simply decided he wasn't ready to be a father. He wanted to travel. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. He didn't want a crying baby and a tired wife in a small apartment. So he left. He left a note on the kitchen counter next to the toaster. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't do this." That was it. No money. No forwarding address. Just silence. I remember sitting on the linoleum floor of that kitchen, holding Liam. The refrigerator was humming. It was the only sound in the house. I had $12 in my wallet. Rent was due in 3 days. I looked at Liam's face. He was sleeping, his tiny eyelashes fluttering against his cheeks. He looked so peaceful. He had no idea his world had just fallen apart. "It's okay," I whispered to him, rocking back and forth. "It's just us now, baby. It's just us against the world." And for the next 25 years, that was the truth. Or so I thought. I became a machine. That's the only way I can describe those years. I turned off my feelings, turned off my exhaustion, and just worked. My day started at 4:30 a.m. I would splash cold water on my face, drink a cup of instant coffee that tasted like burnt dirt, and head to the bakery for the morning shift. I kneaded dough until my arms felt like lead. Then, at 11 a.m., I ran to the diner for the lunch rush. I served burgers and shakes to families who looked happy, families who had fathers. In the evenings, I cleaned office buildings. I emptied trash cans filled with papers that were more important than me. I wiped down mahogany desks that cost more than my annual salary. I did this 6 days a week. Sometimes 7. I wore the same winter coat for 12 years. I cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror. I ate the leftovers from the diner so I didn't have to buy groceries for myself. Every spare dollar, every dime found in the couch cushions, went into a jar labeled Liam's future. And Liam? He was a good boy. I need you to know that. He wasn't born selfish. I remember when he was 10 years old. He came home from school with a permission slip for a field trip to the Science Museum. It cost $20. He saw me counting out change on the kitchen table to pay the electric bill. He took the permission slip, crumpled it up, and threw it in the trash. "I don't want to go, my mom," he told me, his little face serious. Science is boring anyway. I knew he was lying. He loved science. He had read every book about space and biology in the library. I dug that slip out of the trash later that night and ironed it flat with my hand. I didn't pay the electric bill that month. We sat in the dark for 3 nights, lighting candles and pretending we were camping. But he went on that trip. I'm going to be a doctor, Mom, he promised me when he was 16. We were sitting on the porch, sharing a single ice cream cone. I'm going to make so much money. You'll never have to work again. I'm going to buy you a house with a dishwasher. That was our dream. A dishwasher. It seemed like the height of luxury. He worked hard, too. He got scholarships for his undergraduate degree, but medical school was a different beast. The tuition was astronomical. The books cost hundreds of dollars each. I can take out loans, he said, looking worried. No, I told him firmly. You focus on studying. I'll handle the money. I didn't want him starting his life drowning in debt. So, I took a 3rd mortgage on our tiny, crumbling house. I cashed out my small retirement fund. I sold my car and took the bus. We were a team. I was the engine, and he was the driver. But then, 6 months ago, the engine started to sputter. And it wasn't because I was tired. It was because someone else had entered the car. It started with a phone call. Liam had come home for the weekend. He was usually chatty, telling me about his rotations at the hospital, complaining about the cafeteria food. But that weekend, he was quiet. He kept checking his phone. Mom, he said, staring at his dinner. Dad reached out. I froze. The fork halfway to my mouth dropped onto the plate with a loud clatter. What? I whispered. Mark, he corrected himself, though he had never called him Mark before. He saw my LinkedIn profile. He saw I was in med school. He wants to meet. He left us, Liam, I said, my voice trembling. He left you in a crib. He hasn't paid a cent in 22 years. I know, Liam said, but he didn't look angry. He looked curious. But people change, Mom. He's successful now. He has a real estate firm in Florida. He wants to explain. Explain what? I snapped, feeling a heat rise in my chest. Explain how he forgot he had a son for 2 decades? Liam stood up, frustrated. You're always so bitter. Can't you just be happy that he wants to know me? I'm an adult. I need to hear his side. His side. As if there were 2 sides to abandonment. But I didn't stop him. How could I? He was a grown man. Liam went to that dinner. He came back different. He was wearing a watch. A heavy, silver watch with a blue face. I knew immediately it was expensive. He gave it to me, Liam said, catching me staring at it. He sounded defensive. It was a graduation gift. A bit early, but he wanted me to have it. It's nice, I said, my throat dry. He's actually really cool, Mom, Liam said, sitting down. He's traveled everywhere. He knows so much about investing and networking. He said I have the hands of a surgeon. I told you that when you were 5, I reminded him gently. Liam waved his hand dismissively. Yeah, but Mark knows the industry. He said I need to start thinking bigger. He said I need to project success to attract success. Over the next few months, the changes were subtle, but sharp. Like paper cuts. Liam stopped coming home on weekends. Mark invited me to his condo for the weekend, he'd text. We're going golfing. Liam had never held a golf club in his life. Then, the complaints started. Mom, why is the house always so cold? He asked one day when he stopped by to pick up some laundry. Heating is expensive, Liam. Put on a sweater. He sighed, a loud, irritated sound. That's a scarcity mindset, Mom. Mark says you have to spend money to make money. You live like a refugee. A refugee. In the home I had worked 3 jobs to keep. I live like a mother who is paying for medical school, I said quietly. He didn't hear me. He was texting on his new iPhone, another gift from Mark. The distance between us grew. It wasn't just miles, it was money. Mark dazzled him. Mark took him to steakhouses where a salad cost $30. Mark drove a convertible. Mark didn't smell like bleach and old frying oil. Mark smelled like leather and expensive cologne. I was the reminder of where he came from. Mark was the promise of where he could go. But I held on to hope. I told myself, it's just a phase. He's excited. But he knows who was there. He knows who scrubbed the floors. The week before graduation, Liam came over. I had cooked his favorite, pot roast. I had bought the good beef, even though it meant I wouldn't eat meat for the rest of the month. He picked at it. Is it okay? I asked. It's a bit greasy, he said. Mark and I have been eating a lot of lean proteins. Salmon. Kale. It's better for focus. I put down my fork. Liam, about the graduation tickets. Each student was allowed 4 tickets. Right, he said, wiping his mouth. So, obviously Mark is coming. And he's bringing his girlfriend, Jessica. And I promised a ticket to my roommate, Greg. I did the math. Mark, Jessica, Greg. That left one. And you, he said quickly. Of course. Just one for me? I asked. I thought Aunt Linda wanted to come. Mom, Mark is flying in from Florida. He's renting a suite. It's a big deal. Linda just lives down the street. She can watch the live stream. He said it so casually. As if my sister, who had babysat him for free for years so I could work, didn't matter. As if Mark, who had just appeared, deserved the front row. Okay, I said. As long as you're happy. I am, he smiled. Mark got us a table at the Obsidian for the graduation dinner. It's 5 stars. You'll love it. Just, maybe wear something nice? Not that floral dress you always wear. I looked down at my hands. The cracks in my skin were filled with dirt from the garden I tended to save money on vegetables. I'll find something, I whispered. I didn't know then that the dinner at the Obsidian would never happen. Not for me. And I certainly didn't expect that as I sat in that auditorium, listening to him praise the man who abandoned him. The real betrayal was still waiting for me in the parking lot. The ceremony ended in a chaotic wave of black robes and square hats flying into the air. The joy in the room was suffocating. Everyone around me was hugging, crying happy tears, and taking photos. I stood up slowly. My knees cracked. I felt like a ghost walking through a party I wasn't invited to. I pushed through the crowd, searching for Liam's face. I needed to see him. I needed him to look at me and give me that secret smile we used to share, the one that said, "We did it, Mom." I needed to believe that the speech was just a mistake, a lapse in judgment, nerves. I found them near the exit doors. Liam was surrounded by friends. He was laughing, his head thrown back. His arm was around a young woman I didn't recognize, probably the roommate's girlfriend. And standing right next to him, with a hand possessively on Liam's shoulder, was Mark. Mark looked like he owned the building. He was wearing sunglasses, even though we were inside. Next to him was a woman who looked younger than Liam. She was wearing a white dress that looked like silk. That must be Jessica. I took a deep breath and walked over. Liam. I called out. My voice sounded thin, weak. Liam turned. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second, just a blink, before he pasted it back on. But it didn't reach his eyes. "Mom," he said. He didn't step forward to hug me. He stayed where he was, anchored to Mark. "Congratulations, baby," I said, reaching out to touch his arm. "I am so proud of you. You were amazing up there." "Thanks," he said. He shifted his weight, pulling slightly away from my touch. "Sarah," Mark's voice boomed. He stepped between us, blocking my view of my son. "Long time no see. You look exactly the same." It wasn't a compliment. He looked me up and down, his eyes lingering on my worn-out shoes and the hem of my thrift store dress. He smirked. "Hello, Mark," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You look different." "Success changes a man," he laughed, slapping Liam on the back. "And it looks like it runs in the family. This kid is going places. I've already set him up with some contacts in Miami." "That's great," I said. I tried to catch Liam's eye again. "Liam, are we still heading to the restaurant? I have the car parked around back. I can drive you." The air suddenly grew heavy. The silence that fell over the small group was sharp and awkward. Liam looked at Mark. Then he looked at his shoes. He wouldn't look at me. "Actually, Mom," Liam started, scratching the back of his neck. "About dinner?" "Yes?" I clutched my purse tighter. Inside was an envelope. It contained a check for $5,000. It was the absolute last of my savings. I had planned to give it to him at dinner for his moving expenses for his residency. "Mark has a driver," Liam said. "A limo, actually. It's pretty cool." "Oh," I said, forcing a smile. "Well, that's fancy. I can just meet you there, then." "What time is the reservation?" Liam looked at Mark again. Mark checked his watch, looking bored. "Mom," Liam said, his voice dropping to a whisper. He stepped closer to me, finally separating from his father. "Here's the thing. Mark invited some investors to the dinner. It's going to be strictly business. A networking thing." My stomach dropped. "But it's your graduation dinner. We planned this months ago." "I know," he said, sounding annoyed now. "But plans change. This is for my career, Mom. You want me to be successful, right?" "I want to celebrate with my son," I said, my voice cracking. "Look, you wouldn't be comfortable," Liam said bluntly. "It's a high-end place. They talk about stocks, the market, medical tech. You'd be bored." "Bored." He meant embarrassed. He meant I didn't fit in. I wasn't shiny enough. I wasn't rich enough. "I see," I whispered. "Don't be like that," he sighed. "I'll come by the house tomorrow before I fly out with Mark. We can have coffee or something." He reached into his pocket. "Oh, and Mom? Did you bring that check you mentioned? For the moving costs?" I stared at him. He had just uninvited me to his own graduation dinner. He had publicly erased me from his success. And now, in the next breath, he was asking for money. "The check," he repeated, snapping his fingers slightly as if to wake me up. "I need to put a deposit down on the new apartment in Miami by Monday." My hand was inside my purse. My fingers were brushing against the paper envelope. I looked at Mark, who was checking his phone, indifferent to the woman who raised his son. I looked at Liam, who was looking at me not with love, but with expectation. Like I was an ATM machine that had momentarily stopped working. Something shifted in my brain. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. Cold, hard clarity. I realized then that Liam didn't see me as a person. He saw me as a resource. I was the ladder he climbed to get to the roof, and now that he was up there with Mark, he was kicking the ladder away. "Mom?" Liam asked, frowning. I slowly pulled my hand out of my purse. "I didn't bring it," I lied. Liam's face fell. "What? You said you would." "I forgot," I said calmly. The lie tasted strange on my tongue, but it also tasted like power. I left it on the kitchen counter. "Ugh, seriously?" Liam groaned. He rolled his eyes. A grown man, a doctor, rolling his eyes at his mother. "Okay, fine. I'll swing by and get it in the morning. Have it ready, okay? Mark hates waiting." "Liam!" Mark shouted from the curb. The black stretch limousine had arrived. "Let's go. Champagne is waiting." "Coming." Liam shouted back. He turned to me. "I gotta go. Love you, Mom. See you tomorrow." He didn't hug me. He turned and jogged toward the limo. I watched as the driver opened the door for him. He slid inside next to his father. The door slammed shut with a heavy, final thud. The tinted windows rolled up, hiding them from view. I stood alone on the sidewalk. The exhaust from the limo hit me in the face as it pulled away, disappearing into the city traffic. I walked to my car. It was a rusted 2008 sedan with a cracked bumper. I sat in the driver's seat and put my hands on the steering wheel. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. The tears were stuck somewhere deep inside, frozen by the shock. I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope. $5,000. It was my emergency fund. It was my fix-the-roof fund. It was my what-if-I-get-sick fund. I looked at the check. It was already written out to Liam Turner. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a lighter. I kept it there for emergencies, though I didn't smoke. I flicked the lighter. The small orange flame danced in the dim light of the car. I held the corner of the check to the flame. I watched the paper curl and blacken. I watched the name Liam Turner turn into ash. I held it until the heat burned my fingertips, then I dropped the charred remains into the coffee cup holder. "See you tomorrow," I whispered to the empty car. But I knew there would be no check tomorrow. And if I had my way, there would be no coffee either. I drove home in silence. When I walked into my small, quiet house, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark living room, listening to the ticking of the clock. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. It was a terrifying plan, but it was the only way to save myself. And maybe, just maybe, the only way to save Liam from becoming exactly like his father. At 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Liam, on my way. Have the check ready? Mark is in a rush. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the closet. I pulled out 3 large suitcases. These were Liam's suitcases. He had left a lot of his things here, winter clothes, old textbooks, his collection of baseball cards, his high school trophies. He used my house as a free storage unit. I started packing. I didn't pack neatly. I threw his sweaters in. I dumped the trophies on top. I shoved the books into boxes. I dragged everything to the front porch. It looked like a yard sale. Then, I went back inside, locked the door, and pulled the curtains shut. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and waited. 10 minutes later, I heard the rumble of a sports car engine. Mark's rental. Car doors slammed. Footsteps on the walkway. Then, silence. They must have seen the pile on the porch. Then, a loud pounding on the door. Mom? Liam's voice. He sounded confused. Mom, open up. What is all this stuff? I took a sip of my coffee. It was hot and strong. It tasted better than any coffee I had ever had. Mom. He pounded harder. The door is locked. I don't have my key. I picked up my phone. I typed a message, my fingers steady. I am not home. The check is gone. And so is your storage unit. Ask Mark to pay for the moving truck. I pressed send. I watched the phone screen turn black. Outside, the pounding stopped abruptly. Silence stretched for 5 agonizing seconds. He was reading the text. Then, the explosion. Mom. Liam screamed. He kicked the bottom of the door. The whole frame shook. What are you talking about? This isn't funny. Open the door. I took another sip of coffee. The ceramic mug felt solid and warm in my hands. It was a grounding weight. For 22 years, that tone of voice, that mixture of panic and entitlement, would have made me jump. It would have made my stomach drop. I would have rushed to apologize, to fix whatever was broken, to smooth the path for him. But today, I just sat there. I felt a strange calmness settling over me, like snow falling on a quiet field. Liam, I said, my voice level, though I knew he couldn't hear me through the thick oak door. I am done fixing it. I heard him jiggle the doorknob violently again. I had installed a deadbolt 3 years ago after a break-in down the street. It held firm. Mark is waiting in the car. Liam yelled, his voice cracking. We have a flight in 2 hours. Where is the check? I need that money for the deposit tomorrow morning. He didn't care about the boxes of his childhood memories sitting on the porch. He didn't care that I was locked inside. He only cared about the piece of paper I had burned last night. I heard heavier footsteps stomp up the walkway. A car door slammed in the distance. Mark's voice, deep and irritated, drifted through the closed window. What is the hold-up, Liam? We're burning daylight here. And what is all this junk on the porch? She locked me out, Liam whined. He sounded like he was 5 years old again, tattling on a playground bully. And she texted me, she said there's no check. And she dumped all my stuff outside. There was a beat of silence while Mark processed this. Then, the doorknob rattled again, harder this time. Sarah. Mark's voice boomed. It was the voice he used when he wanted to intimidate someone. It was the voice that used to make me shrink. Open this door right now. Quit playing these childish games. The boy needs his money. I stood up slowly. My legs felt steady. I walked into the hallway and stood on the other side of the door. I didn't unlock it. I just leaned my forehead against the cool wood. There is no money, Mark, I said, raising my voice just enough so they could hear me through the barrier. What do you mean, no money? Liam cried out. You showed me the bank statement last month. You have the emergency fund. I had it, I corrected him. But emergencies happen. And I realized last night that I was having one. What emergency? Liam asked, confused. A clarity emergency, I whispered to myself. Louder, I said, the bank of Mom is closed, Liam. Permanently. You're a doctor now. You're a man of the world, remember? Figure it out. I heard Mark curse loudly under his breath. A nasty, vicious sound. Unbelievable, Mark spat. She's finally lost her mind. I told you she was unstable, Liam. This is just bitter jealousy because you're moving on. What do I do with all this stuff? Liam panicked. I could hear him kicking a cardboard box. It sounded like books tumbling. Leave it, Mark snapped. I could picture his dismissive wave. We don't have room for this garbage in the rental, and we aren't paying to ship old trophies to Miami. We'll buy you new stuff. Better stuff. But it's my stuff, Liam said weakly. Liam, get in the car, Mark ordered. She wants to play hardball? Fine. We don't need her pennies. I handle things now. Let's go. I held my breath, waiting to see what my son would do. Would he defend me? Would he tell his father not to speak about me that way? Would he knock on the door one more time, just to say goodbye? I heard the sound of a suitcase being dragged across the pavement. Coming, Dad, Liam mumbled. He was leaving the boxes. He was leaving me behind that locked door. He chose the shiny new life, even when the shine was already starting to wear off. I listened to their footsteps retreat down the walk. I heard the low rumble of the sports car engine start up. I heard the tires crunch on the gravel of the driveway as they backed out. And then, silence returned to my small house. I didn't move from the door for a long time. I just stood there, breathing. It was done. I had cut the cord. It was the hardest thing I had ever had to do, harder than working 3 jobs, harder than those lonely nights when he was a baby. But as I walked back into my quiet kitchen, I realized something else. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt mine. I went to the sink to wash my coffee cup. I looked out the window at the backyard. The grass needed cutting. The tomato plants needed watering. For the first time in 22 years, I didn't have a tuition bill looming over my head. I didn't have to save every spare dollar for textbooks or lab fees. My debt was paid. I was free. But freedom, I discovered in the coming weeks, is a very lonely place when you're used to being needed. I thought the hard part was over when that sports car drove away. I was wrong. The hardest part was just beginning. Because now, I had to figure out who Sarah was when she wasn't just Liam's mom. And Liam. Liam was about to find out that Mark's success came with a very high price tag. The first week was the hardest. Not because of the noise, but because of the quiet. For 20 years, my internal clock was set to Liam time. Is he hungry? Does he have clean scrubs? Did he study enough? My brain was a constant checklist of his needs. Now, the checklist was blank. I spent 2 days just staring at the boxes on the porch. Eventually, I called a local charity. A nice young man with a truck came and took it all away. The trophies, the old clothes, the books. Are you sure? He asked, holding a plastic participation trophy from 3rd grade soccer. I'm sure, I said. Someone else can use the space. When the truck drove away, I felt lighter. I started doing things I hadn't done in decades. I went to the grocery store and bought red meat. Not the discount kind that turns gray when you cook it, but a real, thick ribeye steak. I bought a bottle of wine. I bought the expensive shampoo that smelled like coconut and vanilla instead of the generic dollar store soap. I turned the thermostat up to 72 degrees. I walked around my house in a t-shirt, feeling the warmth on my skin, realizing I had been cold for 10 years. I didn't hear from Liam. I checked his social media, of course. I couldn't help myself. There were photos of him in Miami. Liam on a boat, holding a glass of champagne. Liam in a white linen suit, standing next to Mark at a club. The caption read, "Living the high life." #Miami, #new beginnings, #family business. They looked happy. They looked rich. It hurt. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut to see him smiling like that with the man who had done nothing, while I sat here alone. But I reminded myself, pictures aren't real life. 3 weeks later, the cracks started to show. It was a Tuesday night. I was reading a book, actually reading for pleasure, not just skimming a magazine in a waiting room. The phone rang. My heart jumped. It was Liam. I let it ring 3 times before I picked up. I didn't want to seem desperate. Hello? I kept my voice calm. Mom? His voice sounded tight. Strained. It wasn't the voice of a man living the high life. It was the voice of a boy who had scraped his knee. Hi, Liam, I said. Everything okay? Yeah, everything's great, he said quickly. Too quickly. Miami it's intense. The hospital is huge. The residency program is no joke. That's good, I said. You worked hard for it. Yeah. A pause. I could hear traffic in the background. Hey, did any mail come for me at the house? A few flyers, I said. Why? Nothing important. Just. I was wondering if a credit card bill came there? Or maybe a letter from the student loan servicers? I frowned. Liam, you changed your address to Mark's condo before you left. Why would they send mail here? I know, he stammered. It's just, the mail system here is weird. Mark's condo building is really strict about packages and stuff. Sometimes things get returned. I haven't seen anything, I said. Silence again. Then, the real reason for the call surfaced. So, Mom, he started, his voice dropping an octave. I was wondering, do you think you could spot me like $200? I almost laughed. A bitter, dry laugh. $200? I repeated. Liam, you're living with a millionaire. You're driving a convertible. Why do you need $200 from your mother who scrubs floors? It's not like that, he snapped, defensive instantly. Mark he's teaching me about liquidity. He says rich people don't keep cash on hand. His money is all tied up in investments right now. High-yield stuff. He can't access it for a few weeks without paying a penalty. My blood ran cold. Tied up in investments. Can't access it. I knew those phrases. I had heard them 22 years ago. Mark used to say the same things when the rent was due and he had spent our paycheck on a business opportunity. Liam, I said slowly. Are you paying rent at the condo? Well, yeah, he said. Mark said it's a lesson in responsibility. I'm paying him $2,000 a month for the room. It's a steal for the location. $2,000? I gasped. Liam, residency pays peanuts. That's your entire paycheck. I know, his voice cracked. That's why I need help. Just until my first check clears. I haven't eaten a real meal in 2 days, Mom. I'm eating protein bars from the hospital vending machine. The old instinct flared up. Feed him. Save him. Send the money. I looked at the ribeye steak I had eaten for dinner. I looked at the warm living room. Where is Mark? I asked. If you're hungry, why doesn't your father buy you dinner? He took you to the Obsidian, didn't he? He's out of town, Liam said miserably. He went to Vegas for a conference. He took Jessica. So he has money for Vegas, but not for groceries for his son? It's a business expense. Liam yelled. You don't understand how it works, Mom. You have a worker's mindset. Mark is playing the long game. The long game, I repeated. Liam, listen to me. I am not sending you money. I don't have it. You have a credit card, he argued. Just put it on the card and I'll pay you back next month. I promise. No, I said firmly. Mom, please. I'm your son. I am your mother, I said, my voice shaking. And for 22 years, I made sure you never went hungry. I worked myself into the ground so you could have this career. And on the biggest day of your life, you acted like I was an embarrassment. You chose Mark. You chose the rich parent. So now, you have to live with the rich parent's rules. You're being vindictive, he spat. No, Liam. I'm being broke. Remember? I'm the poor one with the scarcity mindset. Ask Mark for the money. He's the one with the vision. I hung up the phone. My hand was trembling. I felt sick. I wanted to cry. I wanted to call him back and transfer the money. But I didn't. I turned off the phone. I went into the bathroom and ran a hot bath. I sat in the warm water, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't easy. It felt like I was cutting off my own arm. But I knew that if I sent that money, he would never see the truth. He would never see Mark for who he really was. He needed to be hungry. He needed to be scared. Because that was the only way the illusion would break. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was just the beginning. The house of cards Mark had built was already shaking in the wind. And when it fell, it wasn't going to just hurt Liam's wallet. It was going to destroy his entire world. 2 weeks later, I got a knock on my door. It wasn't Liam. And it wasn't Mark. It was a woman. She looked tired, just like I used to. She was holding a stack of papers. Are you Sarah Turner? She asked. Yes, I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. I'm looking for Mark Turner, she said. Or his son, Liam. I was told this was their last known address. They don't live here, I said. Who are you? She looked at me with sympathetic eyes. I'm a process server, ma'am. But, off the record? I think you're one of the lucky ones. Lucky? Mark Turner is being sued, she said. By about 12 different people. For fraud. Fraud. The word hung in the air like smoke. He's been running a Ponzi scheme disguised as a real estate investment firm, the process server explained, lowering her voice. He targets young professionals, retirees, anyone with a clean credit score. He uses their names to open lines of credit, maxes them out, and then moves to the next town. She looked at me with pity. If your son is with him, he needs to be careful. Mark Turner destroys everything he touches. I took the papers. My hands were cold. Thank you, I whispered. When she left, I didn't call Liam. Not immediately. I know that sounds cruel. A mother should protect her child. A mother should scream from the rooftops to warn him. But I knew my son. If I called him right now and told him his hero father was a con artist, he wouldn't believe me. He would say I was jealous. He would say I was trying to sabotage him. He had to see it. He had to feel the ground crumble beneath his own feet. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, my phone rang at 2 a.m. Calls at 2 a.m. are never good news. They are accidents, deaths, or disasters. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding against my ribs. I fumbled for the phone. Mom? It was Liam. But it wasn't the arrogant doctor who had rolled his eyes at me. It wasn't the annoyed son asking for cash. He was sobbing. Deep, guttural, terrified sobs. The kind of crying a child does when they are lost in a grocery store. Liam? Liam, breathe. What's wrong? He's gone, Liam gasped, choking on the words. Mom, he's gone. Who is gone? Mark? Yes. I came home from my shift, the condo. He couldn't finish the sentence. Liam, tell me what happened, I said, my voice engaging into crisis mode. I was calm. I was the rock. I came home, and the locks were changed, he stammered. The management company, they were there. They said the rent hasn't been paid in 3 months. They said Mark, he bounced the checks. Okay, I said. Where is Mark now? I don't know. Liam screamed. His phone is disconnected. His stuff is gone. He cleared out the safe. He took his watches, his laptop, everything. And your stuff? I asked quietly. It's inside, Liam wept. They won't let me in. They said. Mom, they said my name is on the lease. I closed my eyes. Of course it was. He told me it was just for formalities, Liam sobbed. He said because he travels so much, he needed someone local on the paperwork. I signed it, Mom. I signed everything. What else did you sign, Liam? The silence on the other end was terrifying. He said he needed a cosigner for the car because his assets were offshore. And he opened a credit card for business expenses in my name to build my credit score. I felt a wave of nausea. Mark hadn't just abandoned Liam again. He had harvested him. He had come back after 20 years not to be a father, but because he needed a fresh victim with clean credit and a naive heart. He had looked at his own son and seen a payday. I checked the account online, Liam whispered. His voice sounded hollow, like a ghost. The card is maxed out. $50,000. Casinos. Jewelry stores. Hotels. Oh, Liam, I breathed. I'm ruined, Mom, he cried. I'm going to lose my residency. If I have a criminal record, if I have debt collectors coming to the hospital, I'll lose my medical license before I even start. I have nowhere to go. I'm sitting on the curb outside the building. It's raining. He paused, and then came the words that broke my heart and healed it all at once. I'm so sorry. Mom, I am so sorry. He wasn't apologizing for the money. He was apologizing for the betrayal. He was apologizing for the graduation speech. He was apologizing for believing the lie. I was so stupid, he wept. I thought he loved me. I thought he was proud of me. He saw your light, Liam, I said gently. And he wanted to steal it. That's what people like him do. They steal light because they don't have any of their own. What do I do? He asked, his voice small. I have no money. I have no clothes. I have debt I can't pay. I have no one. I looked around my dark bedroom. I looked at the photos on my dresser, pictures of just the two of us. Liam at the beach. Liam at his high school graduation. Liam blowing out candles on a lopsided cake I baked. He had tried to erase me. But I was still here. You don't have no one, I said firmly. Mom, can you help me? He begged. I know I don't deserve it. I know I treated you like garbage. But please. I'm scared. I took a deep breath. I can't pay your debt, Liam, I said. I don't have $50,000. And I can't pay your rent in Miami. I know, he cried. But, I said, I can buy you a bus ticket. A bus ticket? Come home, I said. Pack whatever you can carry. Leave the rest. Get on the first bus north. But my residency. Talk to your program director, I advised him. Tell them there is a family emergency. Tell them you are a victim of identity theft, because you are. Be honest. But you can't stay on a curb in Miami. I don't have money for a bus ticket, he whispered, humiliated. I'll buy it online right now and text you the confirmation number, I said. Go to the station. It will be a long ride. 24 hours. Thank you, he sobbed. Mom, thank you. I love you. I know, I said. Get to the station, Liam. I hung up the phone. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. I sat at the table as the sun came up. I watched the light filter through the trees in the backyard. Mark had destroyed him. He had stripped him of his arrogance, his money, and his trust. Liam was coming back broken. He was coming back with nothing but the clothes on his back and a mountain of debt. But he was coming back to the only person who had ever actually loved him. The journey wasn't over. The legal battles would be a nightmare. The debt would be crippling. But the lie was dead. The rich father fantasy was ashes. And now, we had to rebuild. Not from the foundation, Mark had cracked that, but from the ground up. I checked my bank account. The bus ticket cost $180. It left me with $20 until payday. I clicked purchase. I wasn't sacrificing myself this time. I wasn't enabling him. I was offering a lifeline, not a yacht. Now, he had to swim. I picked him up at the bus station at 11 p.m. It was raining, a cold, gray drizzle that soaked through your clothes. When the bus hissed to a halt and the doors opened, I almost didn't recognize him. The boy who stepped off wasn't the arrogant young doctor in the linen suit. He was wearing wrinkled sweatpants and a hoodie. He looked thin. His eyes were dark circles of exhaustion. He wasn't carrying expensive leather luggage. He was clutching a plastic grocery bag with his few remaining belongings. He saw me standing by my rusted car. He didn't wave. He just walked toward me, his shoulders slumped. When he got close, he dropped the bag on the wet pavement and collapsed into my arms. He buried his face in my neck and wept. He smelled like stale bus air, sweat, and shame. "I'm sorry," he choked out, over and over again. "I'm so sorry." I held him. I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't say, "You should have listened." I just held him, because he was my son, and his world had just burned down. "Let's go home," I said softly. The drive was silent. When we walked into the house, he stopped in the hallway. He looked at the old carpet, the peeling paint on the banister, the small kitchen with the humming refrigerator. "It's warm," he whispered. "Yes," I said. "It's always been warm." I made him tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich. The simplest meal in the world. He ate it like it was a 5-star feast. He ate with shaking hands. "I was so hungry," he said, wiping his mouth. "Mark," he ordered room service the night before he left. Lobster. Steak. And I was sitting there, afraid to ask for a bite because he made me feel like I hadn't earned it. He looked up at me, his eyes red. "You worked 3 jobs so I never had to feel that way. And I spat in your face for it." "You were blinded, Liam," I said, sitting across from him. "Gold shines brighter than wood. But wood is what builds a house." You couldn't tell the difference. The next few months were a different kind of hard work. We didn't just move on. We had to fight. I drove him to the police station the next morning. It was the hardest thing he ever had to do. He had to sit in a sterile room and file a police report against his own father. He had to admit to a detective that he had been scammed, that he had signed documents he didn't understand, that he had been a pawn. "He's a predator," the detective told us grimly. "We've had alerts on Mark Turner in 3 other states. But he's slippery. We'll issue a warrant." It took 6 months to clear up the financial mess. We spent hours on the phone with credit card companies, fraud departments, and the hospital board. Liam's residency program was understanding, but strict. They allowed him to pause his start date, but he had to clear the criminal background check flag regarding the bad checks. For those 6 months, Dr. Liam Turner, the brilliant medical graduate, didn't work in a hospital. He worked at the local library, stacking books. He took the bus. He lived in his old room. He mowed the lawn without being asked. He fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom. He cooked dinner 3 nights a week. He grew up. One evening, I came home from work to find him sitting on the porch. He was holding a letter. "They caught him," Liam said quietly. I stopped on the bottom step. "Mark?" "Yeah." "He was trying to board a flight to Costa Rica using a fake passport. He's in federal custody." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "How do you feel?" Liam looked at the letter, then tore it in half. "I feel nothing," he said. "He's just a stranger who owes me money. But he can't pay back what he really took." "What did he take?" I asked. "Time," Liam said. "He took the time I should have spent celebrating with you. He took the memory of my graduation. He poisoned it." He stood up and walked down the steps to stand in front of me. He looked different now. His face was fuller, his shoulders broader. He didn't look like a boy seeking approval anymore. He looked like a man who knew his own worth. "Mom," he said. "I got the call today. The hospital cleared my file. My credit is still a mess, but the fraud alert is official. I can start my residency next month." "Liam." I smiled, reaching for him. "That's wonderful." He held up a hand. "Wait. Before that, I want to give you something." He reached into his pocket. It wasn't a check. It wasn't a watch. It was a small, velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a simple silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like a ladder. "I saw this at a craft fair," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I thought of you." He took a shaky breath. "In my speech, I said Mark showed me the world. I was wrong. He just showed me a map. You were the one who carried me. You were the ladder I climbed to get here. And when I got to the top, I tried to kick you down." He took the necklace out and fastened it around my neck. The cool metal rested against my skin. "I can never pay you back for the money," he whispered. "But I promise, for the rest of my life, everyone who meets me will know exactly who made me a doctor. They will know it wasn't Mark Turner. It was Sarah Turner." I touched the silver ladder. Tears finally spilled over, hot and healing. "I'm proud of you, Liam," I said. "Not because you're a doctor, but because you're finally a good man." We stood there on the porch of our small, paid-for house, while the sun went down. We didn't have millions of dollars. We didn't have a limo. But we had the truth. And for the first time in a long time, we had each other. Mark was sitting in a jail cell, likely charming his cellmate with stories of grandeur. But I was here, home, with my son. And that was a wealth he would never understand. I look at that silver ladder around my neck every day. It reminds me that love isn't about grand speeches or expensive gifts. Love is the quiet work. It's the packed lunches, the late nights, the silent sacrifices that no one claps for. Mark taught my son a painful lesson about the price of greed. But I like to think I taught him a more important lesson about the value of loyalty. We often hurt the ones closest to us because we think they will always be there. We think their love is guaranteed, while we chase the approval of strangers. Liam had to lose the world to realize that his home was right where he left it. I forgave him. Not because I'm weak, but because a mother's love is the only thing in this world that doesn't come with conditions. However, forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant rebuilding, brick by brick, with eyes wide open. I want to ask you something today. Is there someone in your life who has been your ladder? Someone who held you up while you climbed, who you might have forgotten to thank? Or maybe, you are the ladder, waiting for someone to look down and see you. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, would you have taken Liam back after he humiliated you? Or would you have kept the door locked? I read every single comment. Until next time, take care of each other.